Insightful podcasts by informative hosts. Insights into Things, a podcast network. Welcome to Insights into Entertainment, a podcast series taking a deeper look into entertainment and media. Your hosts, Joseph and Michelle Whalen, a husband and wife team of pop culture fanatics, are exploring all things from music and movies to television and fandom.
Welcome to Insights into Entertainment. This is episode 146. Help me, Obi-Wan Filoni. I'm your host, Joseph Whalen, and my special guest once again today is Sam Whalen.
Hi, everyone.
How you doing today, Sam?
Good. How are you?
Good. So we didn't have a chance to finish our discussion in our last episode. We ran kind of long. Very good discussion, though. But we had to kind of cut our third segment out. So we're going to kind of expand on that a little bit here. Today we're going to continue that discussion where we're talking about Star Wars 10 years into Disney's stewardship of the franchise. In today's episode, we're going to take a look at the two men who've kept the franchise alive and given us a new hope, pun intended. And of course, I'm referring to Dave Filoni and Jon Favreau. Then we're going to take a look at the future of the franchise based on recently discussed projects that were revealed during Star Wars Celebration in Anaheim. Before we do that, though, I do want to invite our listening and viewing audience to subscribe to the podcast. You can find audio versions of this podcast listed as Insights into Entertainment. Audio and video versions of all the network podcasts can be found listed as Insights into Things. We're on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Google, Stitcher, pretty much any place you can find a podcast these days. I would also invite you to write in, give us your feedback. We'd love to get your ideas on topics and how we're doing. You can email us at comments@insightsintothings.com. We're on Twitter at insights_things. On Facebook, you can find us at facebook.com/insightsintothingspodcast. Or you can find links to all those and more on our official website at www.insightsintothings.com. Are we ready?
Yes, let's get into it.
Let's get into it. So before we dig too deep into where we're going with Star Wars, I thought it would be worthwhile to kind of go back and take a look at the two men, I think, that have been attributed to reviving and keeping the franchise alive, and the first being Dave Filoni.
Yep.
Filoni himself has gone back in animation back into the mid to late 90s, working on things like King of the Hill, The Oblongs, Kim Possible, Lilo and Stitch, the series. So he's had interactions with Disney through his animation. But the one big project that he really worked on that I think that established him, because he was moving from a writer role and animation work into directing, and that's Avatar: The Last Airbender.
Yep.
In 2005. You're familiar with that show, aren't you?
Yeah, it's one of my favorite animated shows of all time, not just animated. I actually did a recent rewatch of it, probably within the last year or two. It's a fantastic show, and you really can see. It's not just a kid show. I wouldn't even say it's a kid show at all. It deals with some heavy stuff. There's really cool action in it, really cool themes, and it was one of the first shows I remember when I was growing up watching, thinking, okay, this is different. This is what the animation medium can be, and this is what storytelling can be in a lot of ways, where it's complicated, but also at the end of the day, it's very simple, and it tugs at your heartstrings, and it really connects with you. And I think that as we go through and we see what Filoni does with Star Wars, you can see a lot of his strengths in Avatar that is then translated into Star Wars with similar storytelling techniques.
Yeah, and from Avatar, he moves on into the Lucasfilm world with Clone Wars in 2008. And it's funny, he had relayed a very interesting story. When he got the call to meet Lucas, he didn't believe it because he was a huge Star Wars fan.
Yeah, I've heard the story.
To begin with, yeah. And he thought it was a prank. So he agreed to meet Lucas to discuss a 3D animated project for Lucasfilm Animation. Well, animation was new ground for Star Wars at the time, so he assumed that was there to kind of feed the prank a little bit, and Lucasfilm Animation didn't even exist as far as he knew. It was a brand new division of Lucasfilm. So when he went to go meet with him, he wound up telling one of the members, one of the producers, during the call that, oh, I'm in the process of building my own Jedi costume in my garage at the time. Now, he's my age, so he was in 97, 30 years ago now, almost 20 years ago. I don't know, math is hard.
20 years.
20 years ago. So he's in his early to mid 20s. All right, so I can relate to that because I was going through the same types of things, and there was this lull in Star Wars, and everybody wanted to see more Star Wars after the re-release of the anniversary edition and stuff like that. So it was kind of funny that he really didn't believe that he was being given this opportunity. But what really caught George's eye was his work on Avatar, because so many of the themes that they wind up dealing with in Clone Wars, they dealt with in Avatar. What are some of the parallels from the two shows that you really see his handiwork in?
Yeah, I mean, Star Wars in general, there's always a theme of found family, especially if you get into Rebels and Clone Wars, the idea of that family doesn't necessarily have to be blood, but the people that you find along the way that then become your family. That's a very big thing in Avatar. The idea of, the sins of parents kind of influencing their children, you get that in Avatar with Zuko and his father, and then in Star Wars with, obviously, Luke and Vader. I'm trying to think of, I feel like there's another big one I'm missing, but really the found family thing is the big thing, and Filoni's ability to really capture this tight-knit group of people that would do anything for each other, and that's more Rebels, which I think he actually pitched Rebels before Clone Wars. Clone Wars is kind of more expansive, but you still have that core group of Anakin, Obi-Wan, and eventually Ahsoka. But yeah, I think Filoni's ability to really get down to the heart of things and tell those stories is kind of what made him the guy going into this.
Yeah, and it's interesting you mentioned the overarching theme of Clone Wars. Clone Wars was originally a George Lucas concept that came out of Attack of the Clones, Return of the Jedi, stuff like that. Lucas wanted to tell that story that he couldn't tell in between the films, and that first season was really a lot of what he wanted to do with that. After that first season was sort of when he kind of gave the reins to Filoni at that point, and then you really start to see this series get deeper and more character development. I mean, it's really hard to take an army of people that are the same person and make them all distinctive, and every episode did exactly that.
Yeah, I mean, one of the things, and I'll probably hit on it again, but that Clone Wars does so well is that it takes these genre stories of westerns, I think I said it in the last episode, westerns and noir and crime dramas and all these different things, and puts it in Star Wars. And that's where a lot of the best arcs in Clone Wars comes from, is, Star Wars doesn't always have to be about the Skywalkers. It doesn't always have to be about, the same, three things over and over again, which is where you get some of the failings in the movies, because they're so, hamstrung by these couple of topics. But in Clone Wars, because it's a TV show and you have more time to stretch it out, you can cover so many different themes and topics and storytelling devices.
Yeah, and I remember when Clone Wars came out, they had talked about how they're going to distinguish the personalities of the clones, and the big thing that they kind of latched onto was, they're going to have different hairstyles, and it was like, that's really not going to cut it.
Yeah,
and that's what the first season was. It was, this guy's got a mohawk, and this guy's got a buzz cut, and it was like they were all the same person in really that first season. It wasn't until Filoni really started to get involved with it that you started to find out that they were all distinct personalities. It wasn't just a haircut.
Yeah, and two things I want to mention in that. I think in the first season we get the episode Rookies, which is where it's all about the clones, and we get, I'm blanking on, all the Star Wars fans are going to bash me, but we get that original team of clones that we eventually follow through the entire show. And that's when you start to get their different personalities. And I want to shout out D. Bradley Baker, who does the voice for all the clones. He's ridiculous. If you watch Bad Batch, he does all the voices there. He does all the voices of all the clones. And the more opportunities they give him to do it, the better he gets at it. Because you mentioned the haircut thing, but it really is the vocal performance too of Baker giving each of these individual people who look the same, aside from cosmetic differences, but who has the same face, distinct personalities just through the vocal performance. And if you have any interest in animation and voice acting, it's like a masterclass in what you can do just by little changes to your voice.
Yeah, it is great. And in fact, when we were down a couple years back at Star Wars Celebration in Orlando, they did it was a continuing storyline that they were doing that was an on-stage read-through.
Oh, wow.
And he participated in that.
He was there?
Yeah,
Wow.
It was fantastic to see these guys up on stage, all the voice actors doing a read-through of this story. It was incredible. You can probably find it on YouTube still.
Yeah, that would have been awesome. Wow.
Yeah, it was a great experience to actually see that and to see how they work together, because it's not even like, because when they do the show, they're recording their dialogue in separate, studio sessions and stuff like that. But when they're up on stage, they're riffing off of each other.
Mm-hmm.
They're looking at the person that they're actually reading dialogue to, and they're almost emoting it out. I mean, they're sitting on chairs and stuff like that. They're not up acting it out, but you can see the emotion on their faces when they do this. And when he changes characters, you can see a change in his posture as he's doing a different character.
It reminds me of Andy Serkis, for all you Lord of the Rings fans out there. He did an interview recently on Colbert where he was talking about recording the audiobooks for Lord of the Rings, which are very good if you want to check them out. But he was talking about, because he does all the voices, so he was talking about, and he was physically demonstrating how when he does Gollum, he has two personalities. He'll go from one side of the mic to the other to do the different two aspects of the personality. And it's things like that where, like, I don't know, I'm like such a nerd for like voice acting and things like that, because I just think it's so cool and it's so impressive. And this show is an example of that, Clone Wars. And like with most things with the show, it gets better as it goes. And not just D. Bradley Baker, but Ashley Johnson as Ahsoka Tano, James. I was gonna look up the other two names of Anakin and Obi-Wan, but they're also great because it's not Hayden Christensen and
Right.
Ewan McGregor. They got new actors, and in some aspects, I think they do a better job than Hayden and Ewan did at some points, especially Obi-Wan. I think Obi-Wan's voice is awesome.
Well, and part of that is the fact that there's so much more character development that happens over this time. You've got so much more freedom to express emotions and regret and development of that character that you don't have that level of freedom in a 2-hour movie. You know?
Matt Lanter is Anakin Skywalker, and James Arnold Taylor is Obi-Wan. I just want to make sure I get those names right. Also, a bunch of other people. Corey Burton as Count Dooku is like one of the best voices in the show. It's great, and you should all go watch it.
Just to confirm, it was Season 1, Episode 5 was Rookies.
Yeah, so, I mean, Season 1 is definitely rough, and definitely it can be, like, you're like, okay, do I really want to watch more of this? But episodes like Rookies really are like, okay, there's potential here.
Sure. And
is it a coincidence that's when George leaves that the quality steps up? I don't know. I don't want to bash him too hard, but
well, George was never famous for his dialogue, right?
Exactly. So I think if you don't have to, you can cherry pick some episodes from Season 1, and I would say you could probably skip the whole movie. I don't know if you want to cover the movie, but the movie was rough. It's only kind of worth it to see Ahsoka get introduced, but she's also unbearable in that movie. But she's unbearable at the beginning, but then by the end it makes her character progression even better. So, and Rex too. We get Rex in that movie, who's great.
Yes, we do, and I'll reserve judgment on Ahsoka.
Yes, we've had discussions about Ahsoka.
The jury for me is still out on Ahsoka. My biggest thing with Ahsoka was she was a character that shouldn't have existed. The only reason she existed was to appeal to a certain demographic for the TV show. That was all she was created for.
I mean, in Filoni's pitches for what was going to be Rebels, George handpicked out Ahsoka and was like, hey, we should have her. Of all the characters he pitched, he picked Ahsoka and was like, hey, let's develop her, and then they did.
The problem that I have with that is, canonically, how do you go through the entire episode 3 of Revenge of the Sith? He's still a Padawan in Revenge of the Sith. How do you go through all of that? Or he's an apprentice still. He's not a Padawan. He's an apprentice. How do you go through that? He's never made a master. He never never mentions that he's had this Padawan that went through, 3 years of the Clone Wars and all this stuff. How do you never mention that?
Well, So they kind of tried to fix that a little bit.
Oh, they did a terrible job retconning that.
With the last season of Clone Wars, where you get the animated versions of Revenge of the Sith, and you see, I don't know, I think it's good because you get because you know what's going to happen to Anakin, and it makes Ahsoka like a tragic character because she cares about him so much, and it's like, I don't know, George picked her out of a lineup after he made all the movies, all right?
And that's the problem, is they tried to shoehorn her into a storyline after they had a story.
All of Clone Wars is that, though. We have to go back and retro, that's kind of the thing Filoni does, is he takes what are the movies and tries to make them better with TV shows. And he did that with Clone Wars, where the prequels are just better if you watch Clone Wars, because you get, it's not just one elevator conversation between Anakin and Obi-Wan. It's multiple interactions where you really believe that these guys are friends. And it makes... And the clones in general, you really care about the clones, and when Order 66 happens in that final season, it's really heartbreaking, especially for what happens to Ahsoka.
Absolutely, that I will agree with. However, the one area that he failed to do any justice to in Clone Wars from the movies was Jar Jar. Jar Jar was still annoying.
At the end, Jar Jar gets one arc with Mace Windu that's not awful, but everything else kind of is. He gets one arc.
I still think Jar Jar is a secret Sith Lord who started the whole thing.
Hey, George said Jar Jar was the key to all of this, so we can take that however we want.
So, all right, so he moves on from Clone Wars, does a fantastic job with that. He gets his Rebels, which I liked Rebels. I think Rebels worked very well. I think it wound up falling into that same... siloing issue that Star Wars tends to do, where you have this entire galaxy and this whole thing takes place basically on one planet.
Yeah, Lothal.
And it's not a particularly compelling planet.
No, it's just like a field.
Right. Like, there's literally nothing there.
Until the final season when everything's there.
Right. So that's kind of where it was a stretch for me, and it kind of fell off. But the one thing they did that was really good with that was they gave you the expansion of the understanding of the Force.
Yeah.
When they tried to do that in Clone Wars with the
father-daughter.
Yeah,
son.
I forget the name of the planet.
It starts with an M. Mortis?
Mortis, yes. Yeah. Yes. That was interesting because they actually tried to tie that into the novels that were happening at the time with Legacy of the Jedi novels, I think it was. And they had this ultimate villain, and she was associated with the father and all that stuff. Very interesting. Shows up as one of the monster villains in Star Wars role playing.
Oh, really?
The SW5E. Yeah.
Huh, that's neat.
So he does that. He does Forces of Destiny, which was the...
Can I talk about Rebels a little bit? Because Rebels,
I was just going to skip right over
I
Rebels.
noticed that.
No, go ahead, talk about
Rebels.
Rebels.
Rebels is definitely worth watching. I think in a lot of regards, it's on the same tier. We spoke very highly of Clone Wars, but I think Rebels is right there. I mean, Rebels, the problem with Rebels is it's like a kid show in the beginning, and it does... Yeah, which, is that a Filoni thing? Is that like a network thing? Who knows? I think it's a network thing.
Well, let me stop you there for a second, because I read the prequel novels before this that introduced the characters.
Okay.
They are not kid-friendly.
Yeah.
He's this, addled former drug addict, and he's working in the underworld, and he sees her and has a crush on her. It's really off the wall.
Okay.
And then when I saw the series, I was like, wait a second, these aren't even the same characters that they introduced. So that was kind of a shock for me.
Yeah, I can imagine. That's definitely the hampering of it, is that it is a kid's show for a lot of it. But it also does, I mentioned it earlier with that found family thing, and that's something you don't really get a lot in Clone Wars, but the crew of the Ghost is like a family, and it's almost from the very beginning, and it's really, really genuine, and you get a lot of really good moments, and every character gets their own arcs and things like that to really flesh them out, and it's really, I think that's cool. I also like the original trilogy era, even though the art style in that show is weird because they tried to do the rough Macquarie stuff, but that just doesn't translate to animation very well. So if you look up a photo of Yoda, he looks like a monster, more of a monster than he actually looks like. I would definitely say watch Rebels, especially if you liked Clone Wars and you want kind of more of that similar storytelling. Season 2 is really good. We get Ahsoka back, and we get Ahsoka Vader fight, and it's really cool. It's one of the coolest finales I've ever seen in a show. But yeah, definitely don't just skip by Rebels. I would say definitely check it out.
Okay, so I won't skip by it again. Sorry. Slapped on the wrist.
Forces of Destiny we can skip because I didn't watch that.
Well, Forces of Destiny was more a marketing campaign than anything else. They had to come up with some stories to sell some toys, and that's really what Forces of Destiny was. And it was catered to young girls and stuff like that. I don't really have much to say about Forces of Destiny.
Same thing with the next show, too. I also didn't watch this.
Resistance was terrible. The animation was terrible. The storylines. This was one of the things that they tried to do to bridge the gap from Return of the Jedi to Force Awakens, and it was just awful. It really was. I mean, this is one of the ones where Filoni kind of fell flat on his face.
Well, yeah, like I said, I never checked either of those two shows out, but I mean, I'm sure someone had a good time animating it, so hopefully they got something out of it.
Well, there you go. And then we have Clone Wars 2, otherwise known as the Bad Batch.
I talked very highly about Bad Batch last week. Maybe not very highly. It's good. It's more Clone Wars, like you said, Clone Wars 2. You get characters from Clone Wars and Rebels. It kind of becomes a thing that they do now where it's a cameo fest, but you get more D. Bradley Baker crushing it as all the clones, Rekka, Tech. He doesn't do Omega. That's somebody else.
Omega.
Yeah, I forget her name, but it's a young girl or a woman. But yeah, if you liked the family aspect of Rebels and the action-y war tale of Clone Wars, it's kind of like a merging of those two things.
Yes, that I would tend to agree with. And Bad Batch I think is pretty good. The only complaint I have about Bad Batch, and you and I disagreed on this last week, is how much they devoted the last season of Clone Wars to setting this up as an offshoot. They wasted a lot of episodes that they could have used to really wrap up that story arc better than they did, because they wasted a lot of episodes in that last season of Clone Wars that they brought back.
Yeah, I mean they could have. I think they wasted way more time with the Rava.
Absolutely.
Rafa and I forget her sister's name, but those people that show up in Bad Batch.
Yeah, because they got to reuse them.
Yeah.
They spent all that time animating them, so.
Especially that with, like, this is it. Like, Ahsoka's back, and, like, we see where Ahsoka's been, and then she's hanging out. There's, like, wacky adventures with these two sisters. It's like, why?
And that was almost felt like an extension of Forces of Destiny, the way that it went down. That's really what it felt like.
The stuff with the Bad Batch, like I said, we talked about it last week, but those episodes were, like, basically already scripted and made and blocked. So I think that they were in there because, we had already shown the fans this, and people are going to expect that if we're going to give it the full budget that this final season got, which is why it looks awesome. Like, in terms of visuals and animation quality, it's like a huge step up.
See, and the problem that I have there is you're retconning. Like, okay, the Bad Batch.
They're like X-Men.
Right, like, how were they never mentioned before? They come into Clone Wars with this reputation of being like the A-Team. And you've never seen them before. You've never heard of them before. They don't show up on any kind of news feeds, nothing. They just come in with this reputation.
Well, this is what happens
and you're supposed to believe it.
When everything's a prequel and we never move forward. When we're constantly backtracking to fill in gaps, this is what's going to happen. It's inevitable. When the movies are the blueprint and then we try to fill in every possible second of the timeline with new characters, there's just not a whole lot you can do.
And I get that, and I accept it. I just don't like it.
We tried moving forward, and no one liked that, so...
Well... All right, so let's take a quick break, and we're going to come back and kind of do a recap on Happy when we come back. We'll be right back. For over 7 years, the Second Sith Empire has been the premier community guild in the online game Star Wars: The Old Republic, with hundreds of friendly and helpful active members, a weekly schedule of nightly events, annual guild meet and greets, and an active community both on the web and on Discord. The Second Sith Empire is more than your typical gaming group. We're family. Join us on the Starforge server for nightly events such as operations, flashpoints, world boss hunts, Star Wars trivia, guild lottery, and much more. Visit us on the web today at www.thesecondsithempire.com. Welcome back to Insights into Entertainment. We are talking Disney and things. Star Wars mostly, but everyone starts out in Disney at some point, right?
The large looming shadow of the mouse.
So 10 years in, since they've owned it, and we're talking about where they came with it. And the other person who seems to be the man of the hour with resurrecting Star Wars and keeping it going is Jon Favreau, who started out with Disney back in 2008, directing Iron Man and portraying Happy Hogan in Iron Man. And he had a rather storied career with Marvel. What are your candid thoughts on Jon Favreau?
Yeah, I looked ahead at the notes and I saw that we were going to talk about Jon Favreau. I'm not a big Jon Favreau guy. I don't think he's that talented of a director. I think he's, I use the phrase Disney hack off air, maybe. But I like Iron Man, the first one. He also did a movie called Chef. That's pretty good. He stars and directed that. Those movies are good. I don't know. You look at, we have the list here. Iron Man 2, no one likes that movie. Jungle Book, the 2016 remake. The Lion King 2019 remake, both of those movies just felt like such corporate kind of cash grabs, especially Lion King, because
the live action remakes that were 99% CGI.
Oh yeah, well yeah, that's a whole nother. They're not live action. They're just not. They're animated. Okay, just because it looks like a real lion, which it doesn't make it live action. They didn't cast a lion. It doesn't matter. The Lion King especially was a personal offense to me because I'm a big fan of the original movie, and the new one was just so. I didn't watch it, so you can disregard my opinion if you like, but it's just so soulless, and I think it's the epitome of Disney as a corporate machine, and I think Jon Favreau is on the front of that face of that.
Because they didn't have the songs in it. That's why
they only have 4 of the songs.
Yeah,
and
it wasn't.
They redid them and they were awful. Anyway. I'm sure Jon Favreau, he made his money. He's a very successful guy, and I'm happy for him for that.
Happy, I get it.
Yeah.
So what about producing? So producing, he did pretty much everything with Marvel so far. He's been involved with Avengers, Iron Man, Infinity War, Endgame, Age of Ultron. Do you think that his hand with Marvel has been worthwhile? Has he contributed to it? Has he detracted from it? They keep him in it, so he must be doing something right.
Yeah, I think in a lot of ways he's similar to Filoni, where if you look at a lot of behind-the-scenes stuff, and, it's all manufactured, so take it with a grain of salt anyway. But Favreau seems like he is a fan of the Marvel source material, and when he gets to stuff with Star Wars, he seems like he's a fan of that source material, too. And even if he is, the corporate shill I make him out to be, even if he's...
Don't hold back. Tell us how you really feel.
Even if he's a little bit of a fan, that's going to translate at some point. He's not someone that's totally unfamiliar with these properties, coming in, trying to shoehorn it into whatever story he wants to tell. He respects the source material, and he has also, he's found a way to adapt it to a whole new audience. So there's credit there.
So as a fan, he did participate in Clone Wars as the voice of Pre Vizsla.
Yeah.
Which actually, he told an interesting story about this. He was on set doing some post work for Iron Man 2 at the time, and was invited to come in and do the voice for him. And all of a sudden, he adopts that persona, moving forward in the shows. Then they bring him back in for Mandalorian. Now, everyone kind of really got juiced about Jon Favreau because of what he did with Mandalorian. What are your thoughts on... Obviously, you're not a huge fan of his Marvel work or his other Disney movie work. How is he now with Star Wars?
I'm a big fan of Mandalorian. I talked about that last week. It's I think it's the best modern Star Wars thing to come out of this whole, the acquisition and everything. I think it's the most promising thing going forward of what we can do with this universe. And it's, Favreau's been a big part of that. And, I give him a ton of credit for that, because it's kind of like what he did with Iron Man, where, this is the guy for this universe going forward. And we're going to center things around him and have that property be the thing. And I think Favreau's good at that. And I think he did it again with Star Wars. So.
Now, did you ever get a chance to watch the Disney Gallery documentary on The Mandalorian?
I did not.
That's worth watching, because he hosts it and he kind of does all the interviews with all the other directors. Because remember, Mandalorian Season 1 was directed by 5 different
Oh, yeah.
directors.
Yeah.
So it wasn't him directing everything. He was really the showrunner for it more than anything.
Okay, so I was thinking of something else. I did watch a couple of these. I didn't watch all of them, but I did watch a couple of these episodes because I remember that's where you get a lot of the cool behind the scenes stuff that I
Yeah.
So those were fun to watch, especially like hearing the Filoni one. I remember being really good because he talks about like you get he's just a fan, so it's like two fans just talking about Star Wars.
Yeah.
But yeah, I do remember those now.
And I have to say that's probably where the magic really happens. Is each of these guys alone bring an element that's contributory towards the success, but I think the two of these guys together as a team are what really have made this what it is. Filoni kind of had this early on when he had that mentor-mentee relationship with Lucas, and he was kind of like the Junior George type thing. But I think the relationship that Favreau and Filoni have together is more, they play off of each other's strengths, and I think that's really where a lot of that value comes from. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, especially if it's if Favreau is more of the business side of things, having a background in producing and directing, and having a foothold in the corporate world of things at Disney. For better or worse, I think that could be an asset when you've got a creative like Filoni that can do the writing and the story blocking and things like that. Putting those together, that's how you get things made at the end of the day. So,
and I think ultimately that's where we're kind of at with the situation here that we're at now. I mean, we've got Book of Boba that was a collaboration between the two of them, which that was probably not the best thing that came out of it up until about episode 5?
Yeah, whenever the Mandalorian showed up.
when Mandalorian season 2.5 started. The one thing I think that we get from the two of these guys is that we don't get from the movies that we saw, the sequel movies, is there's an appreciation for the history and for the legacy. They're constantly trying to put little pieces in to connect it back to the original series. I went crazy when the Mandalorian lands on Tatooine in season 1 and the little red R5 droid comes out with the scorch marks from the blown motivator from A New Hope. And I pointed it out when we were watching it to the rest of the family, and they're like, oh yeah, whatever, you're just sort of making this up. And then in the documentary, he talks about that specifically.
Oh, really?
Yes.
That's cool.
And he insisted that they actually paint that on there so that you would be able to tell that that was where he came from.
Yeah, speaking of Tatooine callbacks, in the 2.5 episode of Boba, he gets the souped up Naboo starfighter that's like a hot rod,
right?
Which is like so dumb, but I fell for it. Like, it was so cool, and then you see it flying next to X-wings, and it's like the merging of prequel and original trilogy stuff that I think is really neat. And there's just so much potential that if they would just kind of capitalize on, and like what I imagine the Mandalorian will do, moving the story of Luke forward, moving the story of Ahsoka forward, things like that.
Yeah.
Moving forward with things. Well, I guess for Luke, it's he's still we see where he ends up, but the Luke that we all wanted.
Right. Well, and it's funny you mention that because even that scene where they're putting the ship together, he goes to the Jawas and they have to go get some kind of stabilizer, or I forget what it was called, but it's the bar that they used in the trash compactor scene in A New Hope. It's the same exact thing, and they did that just so you had that visual reference to the original trilogy. And it's like the fact that they go out of their way to do stuff like that, I think to me shows their appreciation for it. But it's that little bit of fan service.
I do think you can go too far with that. That's how you get a Solo where it's like the dice.
I agree.
But at least that the people doing it in Mandalorian actually care, because you see the behind the scenes stuff, and it's not like as in your face.
If it's subtle, and it's there to provide accent to the scene or context to where you are or something like that,
And it can make the universe feel more connected, I guess.
Exactly. Yeah. When you do something like a Solo, or even what J.J. Abrams did, as much as I want to say that Force Awakens was the best of the sequel trilogies, it still wasn't a very good movie.
Yeah.
And it was really there for fan service, just for fan service, for the sake of fan service.
Yeah,
it was basically a remake of A New Hope. And they even make fun of it, Like, in the movie, they're making fun of oh, there's got to be a way to blow it up. There's always a way to blow it up. Like, lines like that are kind of, it's that slap in the face that where you're going over the top.
Yeah.
All right, so I got a giant Death Star with a big laser. Oh, well, this is what the original Death Star looked like, and this is what... Oh, so it's a bigger Death Star. Okay. Yeah. So it's like, that was too much. Seeing an R2 or an R5 droid that I recognized and thought, wow, that would be awesome if it was the one from A New Hope, and it turned out to be the one from A New Hope.
Yeah.
There wasn't a plot, line around it. There wasn't a twist to it. There wasn't dialogue around it or anything. It was just there.
We didn't get a 6-episode miniseries about the droid dealing with...
Right. The droid didn't get his own series like everyone else seemed to get.
Coping with the blow motivator.
So, anyway, but I think the bottom line here is that while they each bring their own to the equation here, I think the two of them together is really where that creativity is benefiting the franchise.
Yep, absolutely.
So we're going to take a second break here. We'll come right back, and we're going to talk about the future of Star Wars.
Insights into Teens, a podcast series exploring the issues and challenges of today's youth. Talking to real teens about real teen problems. Explore issues from braces to puberty, social anxiety to financial responsibility. Each week, we talk about the topics concerning today's youth. We look at how the issues affect teens, how to cope with these issues, and how parents, friends, and loved ones can help teens handle these challenges. Check out our video episodes on youtube.com/insightsintothings. Catch our audio versions on podcast.insightsintoteens.com or on the web at insightsintothings.com.
So the future of Star Wars under Disney. So they had a ton of announcements at Celebration. I watched a bunch of the panels. Couldn't go because it was in Anaheim and, flying and all that stuff and pandemic and Rona and all that. But I found when we were down at Orlando, it was better to watch it on YouTube anyway because you can't get close to the stage for anything. So they announced a bunch of things, and some of these we already knew were coming out. So the first one that we have to talk about here is Star Wars Rogue Squadron, which was announced back in December of 2020. It was going to be a Patty Jenkins movie. Then she was on again, off again, on again. She's got Wonder Woman that she's working on. A whole kind of thing. And it almost smelled a lot like Solo, where we're having problems keeping directors again for some reason. Rogue Squadron's still scheduled for a 2023 theatrical release, but it's not clear if they're going to keep that, especially with Taika Waititi's film moving forward that we'll talk about in a little bit. Do we need a Rogue Squadron film?
No. I think my thesis for this part is I talked about it last week, but I've kind of fallen off the movies and TV shows, and I think this is like the peak of that. No, we don't need a Rogue Squadron. If you're going to do it, it should have already came out, and it should have ripped off Top Gun. People would have been way more invested if that's what they did. If I had to guess, I'd say they're probably going to make it a TV show now, because what was it, Kathleen Kennedy, they said they're moving away from movies and they're moving into television?
That was, they did, but they did because they announced a whole bunch of movies at Celebration.
Oh, okay. I didn't check any of that stuff out, but no, I don't think we need that. I never was really into the whole Rogue Squadron thing. I never was really into the games, because they were, flying games, and I was never into them. They had the new Squadrons game that was fun, very complicated though. And again, it's just, I don't know, the flying thing as a topic never really interested me.
It was a great series of novels. I have to say I did enjoy the novels themselves, and they had a Rogue Squadron video game that came out in the, I want to say, 90s or so, somewhere in that time. But none of the storylines from those books or that game is going to be included in this, from what they said.
Awesome.
So it's going to be something completely new. So next we have a movie that's to be determined. It's a standalone movie from director J.D. Dillard, who did the 2016 sci-fi hit Slight. No details about this. The fact that he got his own movie, because apparently everyone's getting a Star Wars movie now. Not only do you get an offshoot of a series if you're a character, you get your own movie if you're a director and apply for it at this point. I don't know.
Yeah, I'm sure our letter's in the mail.
Yeah. I'm waiting for our invitation to come do our own. Because the next one that we have to talk about is another one that's to be determined, and that's a Kevin. How do you pronounce his name?
I was looking up J.D. Dillard. Kevin Feige.
Feige. Okay. So Kevin Feige is also getting his own standalone movie.
Okay, hey, people were jazzed about that. He's the Marvel guy, so
He's the Marvel guy.
I mean, he is. He's like, again, we talked about it off air, but you don't want to point fingers at one person for everything wrong or everything right with a franchise. But Kevin Feige seems like he's the one that is like he steps in and he says, hey, let's do this to make the MCU a cohesive universe. And it's weird they're giving him only one movie, but,
Well, and that's the thing. Like, he's not. Why is he?
Has he directed before?
I don't know. If he's the Marvel guy, why is he doing a Star Wars?
Look, it's Disney. They own everybody. Let me look up Kevin Feige and see if he's directed. That could be interesting, though, if he, does it right. I don't know. Did they give any information on what it could be about?
No, there aren't a lot of details or any details at all. They talk about him being the man who built the Marvel Cinematic Universe.
Yeah.
There was a 2020 conversation in The Hollywood Reporter from Joe Russo, the Endgame director, where he talked about Star Wars in Kevin's debut, and he thinks he's going to do great at it, blah, blah, blah.
It's mostly producer credits on his IMDb, but there's so many of them that I'm having trouble finding anything else. There's 67 of them, and I can't figure out how to sort. So, maybe, he did his time at Marvel. Maybe he wants a shot at directing a Star Wars film, and that's why it's a standalone movie. We're like, hey, here you go, buddy.
That's the only thing that I could think. Michael Waldron's being tasked to write the script of the film. They did announce that. Deadline announced that in January of 2021.
Oh, Loki executive producer. Okay, sure.
Yeah, I mean, it's
a lot of producers doing things that aren't producing makes me kind of nervous.
Yeah, and kind of they're moving down the food chain. Usually you move up to the producer role in the food chain, don't you?
Yeah, but, directors get more critical acclaim, so.
I guess, yeah.
If they're good.
And that brings us to another to-be-announced movie that they're looking to do. So this kind of all plays into that whole theme of Kathleen Kennedy, where Star Wars is moving away from movies. They've got a bunch of movies they want to do. They just don't know, or they're not releasing information. Now, we already know that Taika Waititi was confirmed to be making his own movie here. He was already out during Celebration. He was out scouting locations and filming. It's slated for a late 2023 release. I don't know if I want Taika Waititi doing a Star Wars film. Now, he did get a Star Wars episode. He did get an episode of Mandalorian, which he did great with that.
Yeah.
But I'm terrified that we're going to get a Thor comedy version of a Star Wars movie, and I don't know if that's going to go over very well.
I mean, I'm more open to the idea, just because I think Thor Ragnarok was good because it made Thor more interesting, and it made the universe more interesting by not taking it as seriously. But also,
it helped that every other Thor movie sucked, though.
That did help. Yeah, it's hard. It's a low bar. I have not seen the new Thor movie, which he also directed, so I'm not sure if that quality's still there.
It didn't get very high ratings.
I saw that. I try not to read that stuff, but it's everywhere. So.
Yeah.
I don't know. I think Taika's a pretty talented guy. I don't know. I think if they did something where it's not, like a main character that we know, if he kind of got like his own thing that's a little more quirky, maybe that would go over well. Or just fully commit. Make a Star Wars comedy on Disney Plus. We've never seen that except for like droids.
Droids.
Yeah. I don't know. I think that could be interesting. That's what I've been saying. Let Star Wars do whatever it wants. Take away the restrictions and make something weird. And if you throw everything at the wall, which it seems like they're doing anyway.
Well, that's what Visions is. Visions is everything weird.
True, but make a comedy.
Well, and they did with Visions. There was elements of comedy in some of the Visions episodes too, which is fine because it's its own self-contained little box there, and it doesn't break the rest of the universe. And that brings us to the last and certainly the least desired movie project, and that is the rumored Rian Johnson trilogy. At least from my perspective, I have zero respect for Rian Johnson after The Last Jedi at this point in time. I'm sure you'll disagree to a certain extent there.
Yeah, people harp on Last Jedi pretty hard. It's not as bad as people say it is. It has bad elements, but there's good things about it, everybody. All right, there's good things, and one of those is the directing. The writing is not great, but there are great shots in it. There's great direction. Maybe not with the actors, but with the action and the cinematography and things like that.
Oh, especially like that Holdo sacrifice scene where it goes completely silent.
It's pretty cool.
And they actually had to put a notification at the movie after it premiered that the sound is okay.
Oh, really?
That's how bad the direction was with the cinematography.
Or people are just dumb. I mean, who knows?
Well, yeah, there's a lot of
I think that's much
there.
more likely. Because everybody, especially if you're going to a big premiere like that, people have to clap and throw their popcorn at the screen. So, I don't know. It could be all right. I don't think it's actually going to happen, though, because I think people are way too turned against Rian Johnson for them. Like, he's like corporate, he's like a bad apple, I don't think they give him another chance.
Well, and I think that's a reputation that's well earned after Last Jedi.
Well, the same thing happened with the guys from Game of Thrones. One of them, right? Benioff or Weiss, one of them was supposed to get a trilogy, and then the final season of Game of Thrones came out, and everybody hated them, and they were like, "Well, we're just gonna scrap that."
Well, and then they're coming out with the offshoot, spin-off of
House of Dragons, something like that.
I don't know. But anyway, that kind of concludes what we're looking at. We have a whole bunch of rumored movies that we have no real details on.
That's like way less information than I thought there was going to be. Like, not like plot, they do the Marvel thing where it's like She-Hulk 2023, Thing 2,
And the setup here is that they're focusing on streaming.
Yep.
Because they have to keep people paying for streaming to get their money out.
That's guaranteed money as opposed to releasing something in theaters.
Absolutely. So streaming, it's ridiculous how many projects they have for streaming.
And I'm not going to watch any of them.
They need to come out with another network to stream all this stuff on. So you've got Andor, right? So you're going to get Diego Luna coming back as Cassian Andor. That one's already set. They've got a release date for that for August 31st. We know we're getting that. Do we need that?
No, we don't. Anytime you ask that, the answer is almost always going to be no.
Yeah.
No. I forgot this second show we're going to talk about. I might actually watch, so I might have to retract my earlier statement.
Yeah,
but
just so you can disagree with me, right?
Well, no, I have my reasons for this second show, but no, Andor does not need to be a thing. I mean, it could be, and here's the thing: we talked about this last week. It doesn't all have to be like important to the lore. It can just be an interesting story. If Andor turns out to be like a gritty war spy thing. I don't think it will be, but if it was, and like they actually raise some questions that haven't been talked about in Star Wars before, like the more interesting parts of Rogue One, that could be something worth your time. I don't think it's going to be that. and
rumor has it that they're going to be doing that. They're supposed to be depicting the origins of the rebellion and the rebel cause and. They keep referring back to the one scene about he's been in this since he was 7 years old or whatever it was.
Since I was 6 years old.
So it was really 7. It was.
Time is hard to keep track of. Space time.
But it's supposed to kind of go into that what he sacrificed and what these other people sacrifice and how like Mon Mothma had this idealistic idea that she could change things from within the organization, and she comes to the realization that so there's a lot of
drama.
There's a lot of that drama that they're trying to establish with this. Whether or not they pull it off or not, I don't know. We'll have to find out.
I just hope they commit. I hope they don't shy away. Like that, what you just pitched me sounds great. That sounds like that could be really interesting and deep, and really great character drama. I don't have faith in them to do that.
It's not disputes over trade lanes. That's for sure.
Oh yeah.
So then the next one that you'll argue with me on is Ahsoka. And I'm actually excited about Ahsoka.
We got like the whole Rebels cast coming back.
We do. And what I like about Ahsoka is the character's finally interesting to me.
Yeah.
She's matured. She's not this annoying little
kid
anymore. Yeah, I'll use that word. But she's mature. She's a wizened Jedi at this point. Not a Jedi. I don't know what the hell she is. She's a gray Jedi.
They let her keep the lightsabers.
Yeah, but they're white now, so
yeah, it's pretty cool, huh?
But I think the time period that we're seeing here needs to be explored, and I think it's a great opportunity.
And this is after Return of the Jedi?
This is set in the same time period as Mandalorian, which is 10 years, 15 years after, or 5 years after Return of the Jedi.
Okay. Yeah, because, like, I like Ahsoka, obviously. I also keep forgetting the show's going to happen. But also, they've announced, like, all these Rebels characters are coming back. And Ahsoka's appearance in Mandalorian, she's looking for Ezra. She wants to know where Thrawn is. And, like, that's the stuff that, like, interests me. Because Thrawn's cool.
Yeah.
And, like, if we get an adult Ezra who's, like, again, not super annoying,
because he was as annoying as she was at that age.
Except he was the whole show. I should have mentioned that when I talked about Rebels. Ezra, the main character, is the worst part of the show. And he never stops being the worst part of the show. He's insufferable. He gets like 3 good moments. But I'm really looking forward to that. And I'm curious how that's going to translate to live action. Because, you know, everybody always harps on the translation from animation to live action, and the real answer is because it's not meant to be that. It's not supposed to happen. But like, imagine Zeb, who's the big furry dude, like in live action, he's gonna look like a monster. So I don't know what any of that's gonna look like. But yeah, I will probably watch that show. You know, and that's it. That and Mandalorian.
All right, so we got you hooked on that, and then we've got Mandalorian season 3 coming in. With the big mistake, I think, is they're bringing Baby Yoda back in, which
they had to.
You didn't have to. You didn't. You absolutely didn't. Everyone accepted the fact that Baby Yoda went off to train with Luke.
He's back.
Right. And they killed that in Mandalorian Season 2.5, otherwise known as the Book of Everyone But Boba.
But, like, right away, which is... we talked about this last week.
Stupid. So stupid that they did that.
They should have done... I'm not saying a whole season without Baby Yoda, because I'm not a big Baby Yoda guy. You know, I can't stand the kid. But...
You don't like any young people in the
because
shows.
it's so... At least Baby Yoda was just so, I don't know, cheap and like just a way to sell stuff, which they did.
But they didn't, though. That was the funny part. They released the series, and it took them 12 months to get a piece of merchandise out. Everybody else was selling Baby Yoda stuff.
That is true. I think if we would have gotten like half a season without him, and then he shows back up or something, just to give the Mandalorian some more character time alone, you know?
See, and I think they had set it up perfectly. All he had to do was take the damn lightsaber. Who doesn't want a shiny lightsaber?
I thought he was going to take both.
Yeah.
Have cool armor
just kill
and a
Luke?
lightsaber? Well, no, I thought he was going to... For those of you that don't know, Luke presents Grogu with a lightsaber or a tiny Mandalorian t-shirt. and his choice is essentially you can either stay with me and be a Jedi or go live with Mandalorian.
I survived the Empire, and all I got was a stupid T-shirt.
It's really funny, guys. Look it up. It's a small... He holds it up like this.
Chainmail T-shirt.
Yeah. Anyway, so Grogu ends up choosing Mandalorian, and I thought he was going to pick both.
I think it would have made such a better story if he picked the lightsaber and he realized he had to put that part of his life behind him, and then Mandalorian can go off and shine on his own.
Yeah.
What the hell is he going to do with this kid now? The kid was nothing but a draw to him.
Well, now we're going to go full... I think, isn't the idea he's going to go full Mandalorian? We're going to get... We're
going to get him in a full Mando suit now?
Yeah, it's going to be a mech suit. No, I imagine they're going to go to Mandalorian and kind of make all that a thing, because, you know, they said the Mandalorian isn't the Mandalorian anymore, even though he has the Darksaber, things like that. So I imagine it's going to be...
But you don't need Yoda. You don't need Baby Yoda for it.
Well, now he's a foundling, just like Jin was.
Okay.
And he's going to get a mech suit.
Okay.
But I'm in because it seems like we're going back to Mandalorian. Every time that's in anything, I love it.
Okay.
We'll get Bo-Katan back.
Yeah.
And, you know...
Well, you know she's coming back. But...
The Armorer, the Destiny character.
No, because the Armorer is one of the mean ones now. She's one of the Death Watch, so he's not Death Watch anymore.
He's going to have to fight her. And she's going to have all different swords and stuff because she's an armorer.
Is that what she's going to have?
She's going to have a weapon wheel like Grand Theft Auto.
Anyway, so the next one we have is Skeleton Crew.
There's more?
Yeah, there's like 12. There's like 12 more.
I thought Mandalorian was the last one. All right.
We got Skeleton Crew. Jude Law is set to lead John Watt's first foray into Star Wars canon. The series follows the fall of the Empire through the eyes of 4 children, which I'm sure you'll love.
What?
Yeah. The series is previously named codename Grammar Rodeo. It's described as galactic version of classic Amblin coming-of-age adventure films through the 80s, which clearly you're not watching this one.
Well, like, okay, so I talked about earlier how you can make Star Wars interesting by taking other stories and, like, putting them in Star Wars. This isn't quite what I meant. This is not what I meant. Although John Watts, he did the Spider-Man movies. He's pretty good at doing that, like, you know, that Homecoming movie is very much like like the, what's the guy's name? Like, Breakfast Club, all those.
Right.
All those movies. So it could be interesting, I guess. Why? But sure, Jude Law's in it, so he can be like the principal, I guess. Anyway.
So that's another one that Filoni's involved in, as is Rangers of the New Republic, which was on again, off again, on again. This was the one that was supposed to have the two guys that we're seeing show up in The Mandalorian, and it was supposed to, they set up Gina Carano's character, and then she pissed them off because she was tweeting stuff they didn't like, so they fired her. Then they canceled this, and then at Celebration, they indicated that this was back on. Don't know what they're doing with this one here or why they're doing this one.
Just combine this and Rogue Squadron and no one will know. You know?
This was really what Rogue Squadron should have been.
It sounds like it's like a procedural. Like they're gonna like investigate. Like
yeah,
it's like these
it's Law and Order for Star Wars.
These shows just sound so boring. Like, is it just me? Like these sound like really boring.
But wait, we're not done yet.
We're really not.
Then we're gonna. Don't know if we're getting Donald Glover for it or not, but we're coming out with a Lando series, which if you don't have Donald Glover, or Billy D, it's not going to be a Lando series.
Well, this was announced back when, like, Solo came out, right?
Yeah, but they talked about it again.
This is all just to keep the shareholders happy. None of this is ever coming out.
Well, and that's the problem. It's like, it's almost like, well, let's throw all this stuff against the wall and see what sticks. And you know, we're going to tease all this stuff and see what kind of reaction we get.
And it's because they have to... You know, they got to keep people, Star Wars fans, like, oh, here's this content's never gonna, the pipeline's gonna keep on flowing, everybody.
Then after Lando, we have the Acolyte. Now, the Acolyte actually sounds kind of interesting because they're taking a different route with it.
Yeah.
It's kind of described as a mystery thriller that will take audiences into a galaxy of shadowy secrets and emerging dark side powers in the final days of the High Republic era.
Vague.
Nobody cares about the High Republic.
No, because it's all books. I don't want to read. But if it was a show, I might check it out.
Right. So this is where they're going to introduce High Republic into the series.
They should have held off on the High Republic stuff until this was ready.
You would have thought, right?
Because nobody wants to read.
No. I'm struggling getting through the second book of the High Republic. I really am. I've read every novel out there.
Is it bad?
It's terrible.
Oh.
It really is.
Well, maybe they'll do better.
It's boring. It's more boring than some of these TV shows.
These descriptions, these very vague... Good will fight evil.
Like, they don't even have good villains. You can't have a Star Wars novel without good villains. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
But what's interesting about this one is it's going to be a Sith apprentice who's training to become a Sith Lord.
Mm.
So you can easily tie in elements of Plagueis and Palpatine and the history of the Sith. You can get some... who was the ruler two?
Bane.
You can get some Bane tied into this stuff.
Sure.
So there's a ton of lore that you can tie into this, which I like. Then the next one that you're going to hate, a droid story. An animated feature, a droid story will combine original Star Wars animation with new visual effects from ILM.
What does that mean?
I don't really know. It sounds like they're remaking the old animated stuff, but... The film will premiere on Disney Plus and introduce a new hero guided by the iconic duo of R2-D2 and C-3PO, with Anthony Daniels confirmed to reprise his
He's got
role.
nothing going on.
I know.
He's working at Taco Bell. Sorry, Anthony, if you're watching this, but come on. I've heard you're very unlikable, so it's all right.
Okay,
that sounds terrible.
well,
that sounds like a ride. Like that sounds like a Star Tours edition.
It does. So that's another golden oldie.
There's more.
We got 3 more to go through here, believe it or not. So we have Tales of the Jedi.
Oh, this one's good. This is more Clone Wars.
Maybe. Tales of the Jedi will land on Disney Plus at some point in the fall of 2022. IGN describes it as a new anthology series that will tell stories of Ahsoka and Count Dooku. It's supposed to be a bunch of one-offs.
Yeah, there were some screenshots of this that leaked, and it looks like it's the Clone Wars animation style. So
yeah, which I'm not a big fan of.
Yeah.
And then we have Star Wars Visions Season 2. Did you watch any of Season 1?
I watched like 3 episodes, but I am happy it got a Season 2 because it's something different, and I'm glad that they're giving it more time.
They did a really nice job. There was... I think 8 8 or 9 different stories that came out of it. They were all standalone stories. And of those, 5 were really good.
Yeah, I watched like the first 2 or 3.
Yeah, 5 were really good, 2 were okay, and the rest just throw away.
That's pretty good.
And that's a good, yeah, that's pretty good.
Yeah.
And I think it was based on that idea of, here's 9 stories, and 7 of them were good. Oh, well, let's have 15 new series and see if we can get a couple good ones out of it.
Let's dedicate 7 episodes and 15 shows. That's not how that works. Just spend billions of dollars.
And the last one we have to talk about is
oh my God.
Young Jedi Adventures. First full-length animated Star Wars series created specifically for preschoolers. Because there was a market there that we weren't serving, right?
Yeah, somebody in like the team was like, you know what demo we're missing out on? Preschoolers.
The series will follow younglings as they follow the path of the Jedi in the High Republic era and learn about compassion, self-discipline, and the power of friendship.
Hey man, if it teaches kids something, sure, you know. Good thing it's not the other Republic younglings, because then the kids would ask, what happened to all the younglings?
So it's worth noting that in the first novel of the High Republic that I've read, they slaughtered probably 50 or 60 Jedi in the first novel. I'm not sure that's preschooler material, to be honest with you.
Make it like Sesame Street. You know? Just don't talk about that stuff.
Yeah, that's what we're looking at.
I guarantee you a third of these shows never come out.
They won't. Well, I mean, some of them are already confirmed. You know, the first 4 are confirmed. So you've got Andor, Ahsoka, Mando Season 3, and Skeleton Crew are confirmed.
And Bad Batch Season 2, which isn't in here.
It's not. Bad Batch Season 2. Acolyte's confirmed. Visions Season 2 is confirmed. So there's only like 4 of these that are speculative.
Yeah. Okay. The pipeline, the content will never stop.
So we talked in our last episode about whether or not this is overkill. Is this overkill?
I mean, it looks really bad seeing it all on paper like this. So yeah, it is. And we talked about Star Wars fatigue. You know, people are already feeling that after 3 sequel movies and all these shows already on Disney Plus. Yeah. And I think depending on the release schedule of this, it's only going to get worse. I think the only way not the only way, but a big way to save this would be something like an MCU Thanos buildup where everything is tying into this larger thing. I think these scattershot shows and movies are just not going to grab people like they think it is.
Yeah, and I think the philosophy is that Star Wars is in a universe, and it's a big universe, and it's more than just a Skywalker story. So let's tell everybody's story in the universe. And they're really kind of close to that at this point in time.
Yeah, but at the end of the day, I think they're always going to fall back on, you know, the Vaders and
you have to, because that's the moneymakers.
Yeah, it's tough.
You know, at the end of the day, they need to make profit, right?
Mm-hmm.
The one thing, and we're already pushing up against the time, but I don't care. We're not gonna go to another episode. We're gonna finish it up here.
Yeah.
So Star Wars in movie and television is one thing. Now you can live Star Wars, right? So you can go to Disneyland, Disney World. You can go to Galaxy's Edge. You can stay at the new Star Cluster.
I have no idea what it's called.
I don't forget what it's called. The Halcyon, the new hotel you can stay at. When I heard about all this stuff, I was so excited because I've loved Star Wars my entire life, and I thought it would be great to be able to live in that environment, or at least visit it.
Yeah.
What are your thoughts on that? Do you think it needs to come off the silver screen? Do you think it helps to add to it? What are your thoughts on that?
Just theme parks in general, for me, I have a really hard time getting immersed. You know, I'm a jaded, cynical old man now.
We dragged you to Disney enough to make you hate it?
Well, it's just like, for me, there was definitely a time in my life where this would have been awesome. It would have been like, hey, I'm going to get fully into the same thing with the Marvel Avengers campus,
right,
where it's like you see the dummy of Spider-Man fly across and hit the brick wall because the thing broke.
You saw that.
Yeah, it's a very funny video. Those things, they do nothing for me, and they're all way too expensive, and it's not that interesting to me, unfortunately. But if you can get in there and you can really feel it, and if you enjoy it and it can do something for you that movies can't, where you're in that world, more power to you. Harry Potter World was pretty cool, and I'm not even that big of a Harry Potter fan, But that was very neat. So something like that I think could be interesting. It's not my cup of tea.
And I tend to agree with you. I've only been to Galaxy's Edge once at this point, and I enjoyed it. I had a good time. I could have spent the entire day just soaking it up. The promise of the interaction that they offered you when they first launched it's not there. That's where the hotel comes in. So now you got to spend $6,000 for a 2-night stay to get that. To me, it's a lame attempt to capture the nostalgia that you get from the movies and TV. And what bothers me more than anything is it's not my Star Wars. That Galaxy's Edge is set in the sequel trilogy era, and it's not my Star Wars.
Which is interesting, right? Because they know that, I feel like they have to know that most people don't like the sequel trilogy. Or at least the people that are going to spend $6,000 for a 2-night stay. So why would you not, I think if they made an original trilogy themed area, maybe they're saving that for other parks. You get a prequel one, you get an original trilogy one. I don't know. But I think it's a strange, I don't know, maybe they decided to double down, right? If we make a hotel, maybe it'll convince people to like these movies more.
It's really hard for me to go to a Star Wars land and know I'm not going to see Darth Vader.
Yeah.
It's just, he's Star Wars. And he's not there.
That is very strange.
And it just seems very cheap, and it's a money grab to me. So
yeah, I mean that's the theme of the sequel trilogy.
What's the one drink cost at the hotel?
Oh, the Kai Burr Crystal, the $5,000 drink.
Yeah, which is just it's insulting. The fact that you're asking me to spend $6,000 to stay in a room smaller than our studio here, for 2 nights, it's insulting. Like, I have the money. I could go there today and book that and stay there and not blink an eye at it. I refuse to spend that kind of money because of how insulting they are.
Yeah, and they're counting on the Star Wars fan that has the money like yourself, but that doesn't have the free will, the free will in their brain to say, wait a minute, they're just bleeding me dry. They don't care about me.
Yeah,
they just yeah.
Well, and we're going there again in August. And I'm going to spend a lot of money there. I'm going to come back with a boatload of merchandise that I don't need.
Do you have a good time though? Do you enjoy it?
And that's the idea. I'm going to, I don't know, in August I might not enjoy it so much.
Florida.
But yeah, I mean,
and that's really all that matters.
It's disappointing that it's that money grab. That's all.
It's okay to fuel these corporate monopolies as long as you're having a good time. As long as you don't think about it.
Thank you so much for helping me justify it.
As long as you have that dopamine hit when you buy a new figure or something, it's okay. Just spend money and don't think about it.
Thank you. I feel so much better now. That'll change my life now. Thank you.
Use your Twitch Prime sub to subscribe to this if you have it.
Oh, so I think that's all we had. I think we beat this topic to death. Today with our second episode. Before we do go, though, I would want to just once again invite you to subscribe to the podcast. You can get audio versions of this podcast listed as Insights into Entertainment. Video and audio of all the network's podcasts can be found listed as Insights into Things. You can find us on Pandora, Castro, Stitcher, Podbean, Buzzsprout, any place you can get a podcast. Write in, give us your feedback. Tell us what you'd like us to talk about. Tell us, how if we're doing a good job or not. Do you want us to? Do you want to bash me for hating Ahsoka? Write in and tell me about it. You can email us at comments@insightsintothings.com. We do stream on Twitch 5 days a week at twitch.tv/insightsintothings. If you are an Amazon Prime subscriber, you get a free monthly Twitch subscription, and we'd appreciate you throwing that our way. You can also find high-res versions of all of our videos on YouTube at youtube.com/insightsintothings. Or you can find links to all those and more on our official website at www.insightsintothings.com. You had something else?
Yes, I would like to issue a challenge to everybody out there. What's the best metric? Twitch follows or subs?
Sure.
If we get 10 Twitch subs by the time Andor comes out, I will watch it and we'll do a review on this program.
Wow.
That's a challenge for all you people out there.
That is bold.
I will abandon my principles for 10 Twitch subs. That's not even that much money. You can do it, everybody.
Good to know you got a price.
But yes, if August 31st is when the first episode comes out, if we have 10 Twitch subs by then, we will be doing a full review of Andor.
All right, you heard it here first, folks. That's all we have for today. Another one in the books.
Bye-bye.
Bye.